pale moon hung low over the old village of Ravenwood, its faint silver light filtering through gnarled branches and casting eerie shadows over the cobblestone path leading to the Hawthorne house. Inside, seated at a rough-hewn wooden table, 18-year-old Emily Hawthorne held a chipped teacup of steaming green tea. Her father, Jonathan Hawthorne, sat across from her, shoulders slumped and eyes glazed with exhaustion. The flickering candlelight danced over his gaunt face as he stared at a fraying ledger of debts. It was all he owned now, debts piled high after losing their small farm to a single tragic misfortune. "Emily," he whispered, his voice trembling as though carried on a gust of chill wind. "I don't know how much longer I can keep us alive. The townsfolk talk of me as if I'm already damned." He pressed a trembling palm to his chest. "They say I killed Gregory Crow's coachman in cold blood. It's a lie. I was nowhere near Beacon Road that night." Emily's heart clenched. Her father's hand shook as he set the teacup on its saucer, the porcelain rattling like a dying heartbeat. "Father," she said softly, lifting her own hands to cover his, warm against his cold fingers. "I believe you. But the bailiff has threatened to seize everything we have unless you pay old Gregory's ransom by next week." Her father's lips pressed into a thin line. "I tried every avenue. The magistrate won't listen. And the villagers, they no longer linger to buy our produce. They look at me like I'm a man who'd bring a blade to a friend's throat." Emily swallowed past the lump in her throat. She'd known their situation was dire, rents overdue, confiscated livestock, and creditors knocking at their door each dawn. But to think her gentle, bookish father could be reduced to a helpless fugitive of rumor, was a kind of cruelty she could scarcely bear. That night, as the moonlight waned and candles guttered, a soft knock rattled the front door. Emily exchanged a fearful glance with her father. She whispered, "It can't be the bailiff yet. It'd be too late for him to ride now." Her father tensed, lips pursed. "It's past midnight. Who would come to Hawthorne House at this hour?" Emily slid from the bench and crept to the door, voice barely a breath. "I'll see." She opened the door a crack. The dim lantern light revealed an unfamiliar figure, a woman, middle-aged, dressed in a simple but impeccably neat dark gown, her hair tucked beneath a lace cap. In her hands, she carried a small satchel tied with crimson ribbon. "Good evening," the woman said quietly, her voice calm yet edged with urgency. "Forgive my intrusion so late. My name is Matilda Graves. I come on behalf of Gregory Crow." Emily stiffened, a cold knot tightening in her stomach. "Gregory Crow? The man whose coachman was killed?" Matilda inclined her head. "That is correct. He wishes to propose an arrangement, one that might spare your family further ruin." Emily's gaze flicked back to her father, whose ashen face was creased with mingled fear and hopelessness. "What sort of arrangement?" she whispered. Matilda stepped into the flickering candlelight, revealing a face marked by determination and a single furrow of compassion in her brow. Mr. Crow requires an heir to his estate. His only son, Daniel, passed away 3 years ago under questionable circumstances. The family tradition demands a union between the last Crow bloodline and a willing bride. My lord agrees to forgive all debt and false charges if a suitable young woman takes his son's place, in marriage. Emily's breath hitched. You're asking me? Your father's bail could be paid in full, Matilda continued. You would be provided a home, security, and the Crow name. In exchange, you would marry Gabriel Crow Mr. Crow's nephew, who will inherit the estate in due time. It is the only way to clear your family's name. Jonathan Hawthorne's head lolled forward, as if the weight of the world had crushed his shoulders. Marry into. He began hoarsely. Emily, you cannot. Emily felt her cheeks flush. Father, we have no choice. She turned back to Matilda. What terms? Matilda extended a formal letter sealed with crimson wax. Sign here within 3 days. The wedding is set for the next full moon. Do not worry about Gabriel Crow, he is a young man of decent character. But be warned, the Crow ancestral home, Blackthorn Manor, is ancient. It has secrets that even we, the caretaker's family, dare not speak of. A hush settled over the Hawthorne parlor. Emily swallowed hard. The notion of marrying a complete stranger and heir of a wealthy but reclusive family sent shivers down her spine. Yet before her, a future for her father, a future that could save them both from ruin. 2 nights later, Emily walked along a deserted lane toward the Crow estate, escorted by 2 hushed footmen, the air crisp enough to make her breath puff in small clouds. Blackthorn Manor loomed ahead, towering spires of blackened stone, windows like dark eyes watching her approach, and the flicker of torchlight against ivy-clad walls. She clutched the letter from Matilda, now worn at the edges, and felt her pulse throbbing in her throat. Miss Hawthorne, said the elder footman, clearing his throat. We have arrived. If you would follow me. The main doors creaked open, revealing a grand foyer dimly lit by iron sconces. The air smelled faintly of cedar and dust. Tapestries along the walls depicted centuries of Crow lineage, somber faces in oil paint, ancestors with pale eyes that seemed to follow her every step. A tall figure detached himself from the shadows at the far end of the hall. He stepped forward into the torchlight and bowed. Miss Hawthorne. I am Gabriel Crow. Welcome to Blackthorn Manor. His voice was smooth, courteous, but there was a subtle chill in his dark eyes that made Emily's skin prickle. His hair was black as raven's wings, swept back from a pale, high forehead. His suit was simple yet impeccably tailored, no hint of frivolity, only precise formality. Thank you, Emily replied, striving to keep her voice steady. Her mind whirled with questions. She studied Gabriel's lean frame, the faint scar under his left eye, the way his gaze never settled for too long. There was something unnerving behind his courteous manner, something she could not yet name. I apologize that my uncle, Lord Gregory Crow, could not greet you in person, Gabriel continued, voice measured. He remains unwell. Matilda told me you would be arriving. Emily nodded. I understand. Please forgive any inconvenience. Gabriel inclined his head. Come, then. Let me show you to your chambers. He led Emily up a winding staircase, the walls lined with grim portraits and sword racks. Each step echoed in the cavernous hallway until they reached a heavy oaken door. A small plaque read, "Bridal chamber reserved." Your bedroom is there. He paused, his eyes flicking toward the shadows beyond. If you need anything, call the servant's bell. Dinner will be served at 7. Emily entered the room, a wide space dominated by a 4-poster bed draped in crimson velvet. The windows looked out over a mist-shrouded courtyard. The bed's headboard bore a carved raven holding a thorned branch in its beak, the Crow family crest. A thick rug muffled her steps as she ran her hand along the polished wood. She exhaled slowly, her reflection in the tall cheval mirror showing a pale face, dark hair pinned back with a single silver comb. Her heart hammered. She had taken a step into a world of wealth, power, but also the unknown dangers whispered among villagers. Below them, the library doors opened, and an echo of laughter drifted upward, rough voices sipping brandy, cloaked figures moving in the darkness. Emily's stomach twisted. Gabriel, she called softly. What goes on downstairs? Gabriel stood in the doorway, shoulders squared. Just my father's guests. Business associates from the city. They mingle till late. It's best you rest. Tomorrow, we will formally introduce you. He left without another word, and Emily was alone with her thoughts. She approached the window, peering down at a twisted statue of a hooded figure gripping a chalice, its stone face chipped as if an eye were gouged out. The courtyard seemed devoid of life, silent except for the distant hoot of an owl. That night, sleep came fitfully. Strange dreams haunted her. She wandered candlelit corridors where whispers echoed in empty rooms, the tapestry ancestors watching with accusing eyes. She glimpsed pale hands reaching through the walls, felt a sudden chill brush her shoulder, and woke to find the room freezing, the candle tongues flickering violently before dying. Her breath caught in her throat as the mirror's surface darkened, and for a fleeting moment she thought she saw a gaunt face with hollow eye sockets staring back at her from behind her reflection. Trembling, Emily bolted upright. The hearth glowed faintly, the door was locked from the inside. She rubbed her arms to chase away the cold. Tomorrow, she promised herself, everything would become clearer. Tomorrow, she would meet Lord Gregory, learn why Blackthorn Manor felt like a tomb more than a home. Downstairs, in the dimly lit grand hall, Gabriel Crow stood at a long oaken table strewn with sealed letters and parchments. His uncle, Lord Gregory, lay reclined on a velvet divan to the side, an imposing figure draped in dark brocade, pale as death, one hand clutching a jeweled cane. His eyes were closed, but his chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Matilda Graves hovered at his side, a flicker of regret in her eyes as she offered a cup of fragrant tea. "My lord," she whispered. "Miss Hawthorne is safe in her chambers." Lord Gregory's eyelids fluttered. He breathed raggedly before opening his eyes, ancient pools of gray. "She is here." His voice was a rasp, like gravel dragged across old wood. "Has Gabriel escorted her?" Gabriel nodded, eyes averted. "Yes, uncle." Gregory's eyes narrowed. "She must be strong." Matilda pressed the satchel from that fateful night into his cold palm. "She signed a contract, my lord." "The Crow line shall continue." Lord Gregory grimaced, a hint of triumph in his gaze. "Then all debts are forgiven. Prepare the feast to welcome our bride." As Matilda bowed and withdrew, Gabriel remained motionless. He watched his uncle's breathing and then turned back to the flickering hearth. A single raven feather drifted through an open window, landing on the floor by his foot. He picked it up, closed his hand around it until the quill's tip pierced his palm, and stared at the bead of crimson forming on his skin. His jaw clenched. "Father," he murmured, voice thick with complicated emotion. "What have we done?" Beyond the manor's walls, the moon dipped beneath the horizon, and an owl's mournful call echoed. Blackthorn Manor settled into its restless silence, awaiting the dawn and the bride who would step into its ancient, haunted heart. The first threads of Emily Hawthorne's new life had been woven, and already, the fabric was taut with danger, secrets, and a love destined to be tested by shadows older than the manor itself. In the dim corridors, unseen eyes watched her arrival, hungry for a tale that would unfold in blood, devotion, and sacrifice. Chapter 1 had begun. Morning light filtered through the high, narrow windows of Emily Hawthorne's bridal chamber, casting elongated patterns on the rich crimson carpet. She woke, her heart still fluttering from fragments of the previous night's nightmare, the hollow-eyed ancestor who had stared at her through the cheval mirror, and her own scream dying in her throat. As a cold hand pressed against her back. For a moment, she clutched at the scar on her neck where Gabriel's hand had left angry purple bruises. The memory sent a ripple of dread through her chest. She carefully moved away from the velvet-draped bed, her pale fingers grazing the edge of a rolled moth-eaten tapestry depicting a grim-faced crow ancestor astride a skeletal steed. Her reflection in the tapestry's glossy frame showed dark circles beneath her eyes and trembling lips. She drew a deep breath, forcing herself to remember the promise she had made to her father, to embrace this strange marriage at Blackthorn Manor so that her family's name could be cleared and debts forgiven. She dared not allow her fear to weaken her resolve. Dressed in a simple gray linen gown, one of the spare clothes Gabriel had provided, Emily crossed the room to a small washstand, splashing cold water on her face. The chill helped banish the lingering shadows in her mind. Carefully brushing her long dark hair, she resolved to learn more about this household, its inhabitants, and the secrets buried within these walls. Below, in the grand hall, a muffled cadence of footsteps and hushed voices drifted upward. At 7 o'clock, Gabriel Crow had said, dinner would be served. Emily knew she must appear composed, though every fiber of her being ached for familiarity, for her father's gentle support. Instead, she would face the cold scrutiny of the Crow family and their mysterious guests. Descending the winding staircase to the grand hall was like stepping deeper into an ancient crypt. The walls, still hung with banners of black ravens on silver fields, seemed to press inward, as if the house itself sucked away warmth. The air smelled faintly of dust and cedar, old wood sealed away for centuries. Emily's footsteps echoed on the stone floor as she crossed the threshold into the cavernous space. The hall was arranged around a massive fireplace, its hearth smoldering with embers that glowed like dying stars. A long dining table carved from a single slab of dark oak stretched across the center. At its head sat Lord Gregory Crow, swathed in deep aubergine robes trimmed with sable. His gaunt frame looked frail under the weight of age, but his cold gray eyes glimmered with a calculating light as they tracked Emily's entrance. Flanking Gregory, two tall gentlemen in black frock coats stood like sentinels, unfamiliar men who bowed slightly as Emily approached. She recognized them from the portraits lining the walls. They were distant cousins of the Crow line, summoned from London to discuss business with Lord Gregory. Their presence hinted at more than mere social calls. Gabriel waited beside the table, his posture straight, shoulders squared. He offered Emily a small, curt nod of encouragement. His dark hair fell across his brow, and in the torchlight, his pale skin looked almost translucent. He gestured to the seat opposite him. Emily slid into a high-backed oak chair inlaid with black iron, heart beating rapidly. A hush fell over the guests as she settled, each person's eyes assessing her, the young bride from the Hawthorne farm, stepping into their world for reasons none could fully grasp. Matilda Graves, the steward's daughter, moved to pour wine into each goblet. Her eyes were soft as she offered Emily a glass of mulled cider. "We hope you slept well, my lady," she said, voice low and kind. "If there is anything you require, please ask." Emily managed a small smile. "Thank you. I am well." A distant crack of thunder rumbled through the hall, as if in response to Emily's attempt at calm. At that moment, the double doors swung open to admit the household maids carrying platters of steaming venison stew, roasted root vegetables, and thick loaves of dark rye bread. The rich aroma filled the room, a fleeting comfort. Seated at the opposite end, Lord Gregory cleared his throat, causing the two London cousins Mr. Nathaniel Blackwood and Mr. Horace Fenwick to turn their gazes toward Emily. His voice was frail but held iron beneath its softness. "Miss Hawthorne, you have honored us by accepting our arrangement. You will find that Blackthorn Manor may appear austere, but in time, you will see its true worth." He paused, studying her with those piercing gray eyes. "My nephew Gabriel will guide you through our traditions and the necessary rituals. I trust you will adapt quickly." Emily's throat tightened. "Of course, Lord Crow. I will do everything I can to fulfill my duties." Nathaniel Blackwood, a tall man with hawk-like features, leaned forward. His voice was smooth, almost seductive. Blackthorn Manor has been the seat of the Crow family for centuries. Many before you have vanished under mysterious circumstances. You must be vigilant. Our lineage demands unwavering loyalty. His thin lips twisted into something like a smile. I trust you will prove yourself worthy of the Crow name. Emily blinked, trying to conceal her shock. I understand. The corners of her mouth quivered as she took a cautious sip of cider, its warmth creeping through her like an ember. She realized, with mounting dread, that accepting this marriage meant walking into a legacy built on bloodshed and occult whispers. Gabriel intervened, his tone polite but firm. "Uncle, if I may." He cleared his throat. "Emily and I will take a short walk after breakfast. There are matters we must discuss, your new life and Blackthorn's peculiarities." He rose, offering Emily a hand. She hesitated only a moment before allowing him to help her up. As they moved toward the exit, the other guests murmured among themselves, watching their departure with prying gazes. Emily's pulse pounded as they ascended the stairs again. She dared to ask, voice barely above a whisper, "Is he always like that?" So foreboding. She nodded toward Mr. Blackwood's retreating silhouette. Gabriel's eyes darkened. He closed the dining room door with a single click. "You must not trust everything you hear or every eye that watches you. Nathaniel is ambitious. He seeks to control the estate once my uncle passes. Fenwick aligns with him. They resent me, and they resent you." He paused, his gaze flickering to Emily's bruised neck. "I did not mean to harm you last night. I was distracted. Understand, I have never hurt a woman before. I am trying to protect you from them, from the manor, and from the darkness that clings to this place." Emily swallowed, conflicted. "If you wanted to protect me, why chase me through the halls at night?" Her voice wavered. "Why did I feel as though I was being watched every moment?" Gabriel glanced out the window where storm clouds gathered. "I feared your life might be at risk tonight. Something in this manor is not idle. I heard whispers in the library, voices too faint to decipher, but insistent. I went to check and found no one there. Later, I glimpsed a figure at the end of the hallway, pale as bone, then it vanished. I thought it was my uncle's spirit. I chased after that shadow, trying to ensure you were safe." He exhaled sharply. "These walls have eyes, Emily. Blackthorn is alive in ways you cannot imagine." Emily's skin prickled. "Why would your uncle's ghost appear to me? I am not part of the Crow bloodline." She wrapped her arms around herself, remembering the raven statue carved above her bed. Gabriel led her down a narrower corridor lit by flickering torches. "Because you are now the bride, the keeper of our secrets, and the bearer of the Crow name. The ancestral spirits recognize that. They test you. He paused before an intricately carved door bearing the family crest, a raven perched atop a thorned rose. This leads to the library? We learn there for those who know how to read the signs, the past becomes clear. Emily hesitated at the threshold, breath catching. What will we find in there? Gabriel's lips quirked in the barest hint of a smile. The story of every crow who walked these halls. Diaries, tomes, incantations, and the truth about Daniel Crow's demise. He opened the door with a soft creak. Inside, the library was vast, its ceiling arched high like a cathedral. Dust motes danced in a shaft of morning light that slanted through a narrow stained glass window depicting a raven descending upon a full moon. The shelves rose in tiers on either side, crammed with leather-bound volumes, slipcases, and yellowed scrolls. At the far end, a massive oak desk was littered with parchment and half-empty candlesticks. The atmosphere was almost suffocating, thick with the musk of ancient paper and secrets. Gabriel crossed to the desk and withdrew a thick, runic-bound book from a hidden compartment. This is the Crow Book of Shadows, he explained, voice hushed. It chronicles our family's history, our pacts, and our misdeeds. If you are to survive here, you must learn from it if only to keep yourself alive. He set the tome on a reading stand, turning its ancient pages to a chapter marked by a faded ribbon of black silk. Emily stepped closer, peering at the spidery script. What does it say about Daniel? She asked, voice barely audible. Gabriel's expression darkened. Daniel was my cousin. He vanished one moonless night 3 years ago. Officially, the death was ruled an accident. He fell from the turret. But the Book of Shadows tells a different story. It suggests he was sacrificed by our ancestors so the family's fortune would never die. His body was discovered the next morning, twisted in a grotesque fashion, as though something had forced him to his death. He ran a finger along a sketch in the margins, a gaunt figure with outstretched arms, standing above a crumpled corpse. The ghost you glimpsed last night might be Daniel's spirit, seeking vengeance. Or he may be a worse thing, a hollow wraith bound to this place by blood and betrayal. Emily's pulse raced. She could feel the weight of the book's secrets on her shoulders. If his spirit is here, how can we stop it? Gabriel closed the book, the slam of leather against oak echoing. There is a ritual, an exorcism meant to lay his soul to rest. But it requires a willing vessel and an unbreakable vow from his successor. That successor is you, Emily. The bride who replaces him. He turned, eyes earnest. Do you understand? Our marriage was never just a financial transaction. It was a call to duty. You must help me free Daniel's spirit, or else Blackthorn Manor will consume us both. Emily stood trembling before the Book of Shadows, its pages filled with incantations written in a language she did not know. She remembered her father's loving eyes, the dire promise she made to him. She swallowed, determined. I will do whatever is needed, Gabriel. I cannot lose my soul in this place. Gabriel offered a small, wry smile as he closed the distance between them. Then let us begin. Today, we search for the 4 elements needed: the raven's feather from the north eyrie, the thorned rose from the courtyard labyrinth, the tear of truth from a child's innocence, and the candle of remembrance from the old crypt beneath the chapel. Emily's heart pounded at the litany of tasks. Each item sounded like a fragment of a riddle, a test set by ancestors older than the stones themselves. But she nodded resolutely. Where do we start? Gabriel pointed to the stained glass window. North eyrie. It lies in the attic above the library. Every attic step leads to secrets unseen. If we are to claim the feather, we must climb without being followed by whatever lurks in these halls. As they ascended a narrow spiral staircase at the side of the library, Emily glimpsed a hidden alcove crammed with dust-covered busts of crow ancestors. Some had lids carved in the shape of skulls that seemed to watch her as she passed. Candlelight flickered across their stone faces, and somewhere behind a locked door, the soft scurrying of rodents skittered. The air grew colder with each step, pressure building at her temples. Finally, they reached the attic's trapdoor. Pushing it open, Emily found herself in a cramped space under the roof eaves. Moonlight filtered through boarded windows, illuminating crates of forgotten relics, tarnished helmets, battered shields, and crates of moldering scrolls tied with black ribbon. On a rafter above, perched as though surveying the manor, sat a large black raven. Its eye gleamed like polished jet, and in its sharp beak, it held a single ebony feather. Emily froze. She recognized the feather from the Book of Shadows illustrations. The raven, she whispered. Gabriel held up a lantern. Steady. He inched forward, but the raven let out a low croak and flapped its massive wings, sending a gust of wind that rattled the rafters' boards. Stay calm, he urged as he climbed onto a dust-laden trunk to reach the bird. Emily held her breath, recalling her father's warnings about the spirits that roamed this manor. The raven's red gaze never wavered, it cocked its head, waiting. When Gabriel stretched out a hand, the bird let out another croak, louder, more insistent. Its wings snapped shut with a suddenness that snapped Emily's heart into ice. Gabriel steadied himself, leaning in until his fingertips could grasp the feather. But as soon as he clutched it, the raven cawed one final time and vanished into the darkness, as if dissolving into shadow. Gabriel cradled the ebony plume, its quill blacker than the void. He descended the trunk, his eyes gleaming with triumph. One down, he murmured. 3 to go. Emily replaced the feather in a small velvet pouch he held out to her. She could feel its weight, both tangible and yet strangely alive, as if imbued with the raven's ancient power. What's next? She asked, voice husky. Gabriel smiled, a strange mixture of relief and unease. The courtyard labyrinth. Come, let's go before anyone notices your absence. Outside, the morning sun had slipped behind churned gray clouds. The manor grounds spread out before them, tangled hedges and half-collapsed statues overgrown with thorned vines. Gabriel led Emily along a narrow path lined with crooked hedges shaped into twisting mazes. This labyrinth was planted by my great-great-grandfather to confound treasure hunters. Few venture inside. Even fewer return unscathed. He squeezed her hand. We must find the thorned rose at its center. Emily swallowed, then followed him into the maze. Each turn felt like stepping deeper into an otherworldly realm. The thorn-laced hedges scratched at her gown and snagged her hair. She winced at each prick, spots of red blossoming on her skin, a small price to pay. After what felt like hours weaving through winding turns, they reached a circular clearing where a single rosebush grew. Its blooms were midnight black with silver-streaked petals, and thorns thick as daggers curled along its stems. At the heart of the bush, a single rose glowed with an unearthly luminescence, as if lit by moonlight captured within its petals. Emily approached reverently. "Is this it?" she asked, reaching tentatively toward the flower. Gabriel nodded, producing a small silver knife. "We must be swift. The rose is the second element. But beware, prune it gently or its magic will lash out." Emily's pulse thundered. Pressing her palm against the stem, she felt a hum of power surge upward, a low, resonant vibration, as though the bush recognized her as an outsider. She inhaled sharply and, with Gabriel's guiding hand, sliced a single bloom at its base. A thin wail echoed across the maze, as if the bush had cried out in pain. They hurried back the way they came, petals clenched tightly in Emily's fist. Gabriel paused when they crossed the threshold from the labyrinth. A hush fell over the grounds. Emily's blood ran cold as she realized a shape had followed them, a figure wrapped in tattered gray robes, face obscured by a hood. It hovered at the labyrinth's edge, unmoving. When Emily blinked, the figure was gone as though swept away by a gust of wind. She felt a sudden tug in her chest, as if something were yanking her toward darkness. She glanced at Gabriel, whose face had drained of color. "That was Daniel's spirit," he whispered. "He watches. He will test us again." He took her arm lightly, guiding her down the path. "Come. There is no time to linger." Emily followed, trembling with a mix of fear and exhilaration. With 2 elements secured, 1 ebony feather and 1 midnight rose, they still needed the tear of truth and the candle of remembrance. Their journey was far from over, but each step carried them deeper into the Crow legacy, binding them irrevocably to its ancient curse. As thunder rumbled overhead and a sudden gust of wind sent leaves swirling like restless souls, Emily realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Her father's pleas, her own vow, all collided here in the shadow of Blackthorn Manor, where past and present twisted together in a web of secrets, and where love and fear lived side by side. By the time Emily Hawthorne and Gabriel Crow returned to Blackthorn Manor from the labyrinth, dusk was settling over the grounds. The sky burned in bruised purples and deep blues, and a damp mist curled along the hedges. They had the raven's ebony feather safely stowed in a velvet pouch and the thorned rose humming with an otherworldly chill. Only 2 items remained for the exorcism, the tear of truth and the candle of remembrance. Yet as they entered the grand foyer, a low murmur of voices drifted down the hallway. Gabriel halted beneath the same stained glass raven that had watched Emily during their search. He frowned at the closed double doors leading to the drawing room. Nathaniel and Horace have gathered with my uncle's guests. They are plotting something. We must be careful. His gaze flicked to Emily. We cannot let them know about our quest. If they learn what we plan, they will try to steal the final elements for themselves. Emily nodded, her heart still fluttering from the labyrinth's eerie echoes. What are they capable of? Gabriel's jaw tightened. Anything. They want control of the estate, and if they can stop Daniel's ritual, they know Uncle's fragile health will deteriorate rapidly. Without an heir, the Crow fortune may fall to no one or to them if they eliminate me. He set his jaw. We must move quickly. Together they slipped through the dim corridor to a hidden doorway behind a tapestry depicting a masked crow ancestor. Gabriel pressed on a carved raven, and the tapestry parted to reveal a narrow spiral staircase descending beneath the great hall. This leads to the old servant's wing, he whispered. In the basement, there is a small chapel with a crypt. The candle of remembrance is kept there, one of the oldest relics in Crow history. Emily followed him down a spiral of ancient stone steps, each tread worn smooth by centuries of passing feet. The air grew cooler and damp, water droplets dripped in the dark, echoing like distant footsteps. At the bottom, they found themselves in a network of arched corridors lined with dusty lanterns. Faded murals on the walls depicted scenes of funeral processions and hooded figures tending a marble sarcophagus. Gabriel led Emily down a short hallway into a small chapel. The vaulted ceiling rose above them, unfinished plaster revealing timbers scorched by old fires. At the far end, a stone altar was carved with a raven perched on a rose. On a pedestal beside it stood a single pillar candle, its wax black as obsidian, unmelted but coated in a thin film of dust. Gabriel crossed the small space and lifted a silver snuffer from the altar. The candle of remembrance has been dim since Daniel's death. It was lit once a year during the family's All Hallows Vigil. But the flame has not burned properly since he vanished. He ran a finger along the candle's side, and Emily felt a tremor ripple through her fingertips. We must retrieve it carefully, its power is strong. It may know we are unworthy. As Gabriel reached to lift the candle, a sudden surge of cold wind blasted through the chapel. The lanterns flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness. Emily gasped. The candle evaporated from Gabriel's hand, his fingers passed straight through it. A mournful whisper filled the chapel. Return what was taken, lest your souls be lost within these walls. Emily clutched Gabriel's sleeve. Gabriel, what did they mean? What did we take? Gabriel's lips were pale, his eyes wide. I think whoever buried the candle and it was meant never to be disturbed placed a ward on it. Only a crow blood heir can truly hold it. I must speak the benediction of shadows to claim it. He closed his eyes and murmured a few syllables in an old Crow dialect. The darkness pressed in until Emily felt she was drowning. Then, with an audible rush of air, the candle rematerialized in his palm, glowing faintly with a cold flame that pulsed like a heartbeat. He exhaled and placed the candle gently into Emily's hands. "Now we have 3, he said, voice hushed. His breath came in shallow gasps, as if he had just exhaled ice. "The tear of truth remains. For that, we need one pure, untainted soul to weep willingly for another's salvation." Emily lifted her brow. "A child's innocence, but there are no children here." Gabriel ran a hand through his hair. "There is a servant boy who lives in the East Wing, Samuel. He is 12, gentle, orphaned when his parents died of the fever. He often sleeps in the attic near the carvings. If any child can produce a tear of pure compassion, it is he." He hesitated. "But he is timid, and the manor's gloom terrifies him. We must find him before Nathaniel and Horace do." Emily steeled herself. "Where can I find him?" Gabriel pressed against the chapel's east wall, causing a loose stone to shift. A narrow passage opened, revealing a ladder ascending back to the servants' corridors. He climbed swiftly, pushing the ladder aside once it was down. Emily followed, descending into a dim hallway where buckets of rainwater had collected in corners, reflecting the oil lamp's flicker. At the hallway's end, a battered oak door led to the servants' attics. Gabriel knocked softly. "Samuel." "It's Gabriel. We need your help." A pale face peered through the crack, a boy with dark hair and oversized sleeves. His eyes widened when he saw Gabriel. "Master Crow. It's late." His voice trembled. "Samuel," Gabriel whispered urgently. "We require your kindness, someone you care about needs you to weep for them. We must collect a tear of truth to save the soul of my cousin, Daniel. Will you come with me?" The boy's eyes flicked toward Emily, anxiety mingling with curiosity. "Why, you mean, like, a tear for someone you love?" He swallowed. "I never cry." Emily knelt to his level. "You can do it, Samuel. We need just one tear, one true tear willingly given. It can free a spirit trapped here. Will you help us?" Samuel's breath caught. He bit his lip. I'll try. But I'm afraid." He shivered, his thin frame racked by a chill. "This house. It's so full of shadows." Gabriel's expression softened. "We need your courage. For you, for Daniel, and for the Crow family." He produced a small silver locket engraved with a raven. "If you help, wear this, and know that you are seen, not forgotten." Samuel's lower lip quivered as he accepted the locket. Okay, he whispered. I'll do it. He climbed down with them, stepping lightly but with a determined glint in his dark eyes. They returned to the chapel. Gabriel's candlelight flickered against the stone walls. On an altar, a marble statue of an angel wept crystalline drops that glimmered like dew. Emily looked at Samuel. That statue holds the memory of all crow souls. Place your hand on its base, and think of someone you truly love, someone you miss or worry about, and allow a tear to fall. Samuel closed his eyes. He stepped to the base of the statue, hand pressed against its smooth, cold marble. His expression tightened as he blinked. "Mama," he whispered, a small catch in his throat. A single bead welled in his eye. "I miss you." The tear slipped free, tracing a glistening path down his cheek. It splashed onto the marble, and the crystalline weeping in the statue pooled into a single drop that gathered at the angel's feet. Then, as if drawn by unseen force, that drop lifted slowly into the air, became luminescent, and sank into a small glass vial Gabriel held aloft. Emily felt her chest constrict with awe and sorrow. It worked, she breathed, tears of her own welling. The chapel's hush seemed less oppressive now, as if the manor itself sighed with relief. Gabriel secured the vial in a leather pouch. "We have all 4 items," he said, voice trembling between relief and exhaustion. "Now, we must return to the Great Hall and prepare for the ritual. Once the veil of All Hallows falls, Daniel's spirit will be released if we have the courage to complete the exorcism." As they retraced their steps through the servants' wing, shadows pressed close, as though eager to see what would come next. Emily's mind whirled with images of Daniel's twisted body as described in the Book of Shadows, of the raven that had watched her in the attic, and of the whispered threat, "Return what was taken." Now, they had reclaimed each element, drawn forth not only the objects but the sentiments of innocence, memory, and ancestral wool. At the base of the spiral staircase, they paused. Emily placed her hand on Gabriel's arm. "Are you certain we can do this? What if we fail?" Her voice trembled, but her eyes held determination. Gabriel met her gaze. Dark strands of hair fell into his eyes. "If we fail, Daniel's soul remains trapped, and Blackthorn's curse grows stronger. Nathaniel and Horace will seize this weakness. But we cannot fail, too much is at stake." He squeezed her hand. "We go together." Emily nodded, steeling her nerves. As they ascended toward the great hall, a final sliver of dawn broke over the horizon, illuminating the murky windows with the promise of new light. The manor's ancient stones seemed to hum with anticipation, as if awaiting the climactic moment when past sins and present courage would collide. In the grand hall, Matilda Graves awaited them. Her eyes widened when she saw the vials and bundles in Emily's hands. "You found them," she whispered, voice trembling. Gabriel nodded. "Tonight, we will lay Daniel's spirit to rest. Will you stand with us?" He turned to Emily. "Are you ready, my bride?" Emily met Gabriel's gaze, recalling her father's frail face and the ledger of debt that pressed in her memory. She inhaled, letting the manor's solemn hush settle in her bones. "Yes," she said, voice steady. "I am ready." And so, as the first pale rays of the full moon began to filter through the stained glass raven above, Emily Hawthorne and Gabriel Crow prepared to perform the ancient ritual that could save or doom their souls, and determine the fate of Blackthorn Manor once and for all. When the crescent moon had retreated and the silver orb of the full moon hung high and luminous in the night sky, a hush fell over Blackthorn Manor. In the grand hall, the heavy chandelier had been extinguished, leaving only clusters of black candles set in iron sconces and the single obsidian candle of remembrance flickering on the long oak table. The four pillars of power, the ebony feather, the midnight rose, the tear of truth sealed in crystal, and the dark candle lay arranged at each corner of a meticulously drawn circle of chalked runes. With Matilda Graves and Samuel at their flanks, Gabriel Crow and Emily Hawthorne stood at the center, clasping hands. Their breath mingled in the cold air as the weight of the moment settled around them. Matilda stepped forward, her expression a mixture of reverence and grave concern. "The alignment is precisely as the Book of Shadows prescribes," she whispered, voice echoing off stone walls. "Once you begin, there is no turning back. Daniel's spirit will be drawn forth. If his soul is not properly guided, he could become a vengeful wraith, stronger and more malevolent than before." She inhaled deeply, then turned to Samuel. "Keep the tear of truth safe. When you see Daniel's apparition, you must release it. Let your compassion guide him home." Samuel, pale-faced but resolute, nodded. He clutched the crystal vial to his chest as though it were fragile enough to shatter at any moment. Emily squeezed his shoulder. "Thank you, Samuel. Your bravery has brought us this far." As the final hour of All Hallows approached, the sound of rattling chains drifted faintly from the distant northern turret, an omen that sent shivers down Emily's spine. Gabriel knelt to inspect the chalk circle. "Every sigil must be exact," he murmured, tracing a finger along the intricate symbols of raven wings enclosing a thorned rose. "If one rune is off, the ritual falters, and Daniel remains bound, perhaps forever." Emily knelt beside him, smoothing a straight chalk line into place under his guidance. The moment felt suspended in time. The world beyond the manor's walls had fallen silent, as if holding its breath. At the north side of the circle, Gabriel placed the ebony feather, its quill pointing inward like a dark arrow. At the east, Emily carefully positioned the thorned rose, its petals trembling in the candlelight. To the south, Samuel stepped forward and held the crystal vial aloft until the tear of truth floated upward as a single glowing droplet. Before he released it, it drifted like a shimmering star to rest within a carved depression at the circle's center. Finally, at the west, Gabriel placed the obsidian candle of remembrance in a golden chalice. A gust of unseen wind snuffed out the black candles overhead, plunging the hall into dimness. Only the cold flame of the dark candle remained, casting quivering shadows across the assembled runes. Gabriel rose to his full height, the iron clasps of his coat glinting in the low light. He exchanged a meaningful glance with Emily before aloud, he intoned the first lines of the ancient incantation, his voice resonating with unexpected strength. O spirit bound by blood and bone, return to the place where shadows roam. Hear now the call of heart sincere. Release the anguish, release the fear. By raven's plume and rose's thorn, by tear of truth on grief's own morn, by candle's flame that recalls the lost, I summon you through spectral frost. As Gabriel's words filled the hall, the chalked runes glowed faintly, each line of the circle illuminating in soft silver. Emily joined him, voice trembling but clear as she recited the covenant of Crow. By bond of kin, by vow of bride, I stand with you, to stem the tide. In life or death, in dusk or dawn, let not your wrath or sorrow spawn. Return to peace, let vengeance cease, and find at last eternal release. The moment Emily spoke these words, a deep rumble shook the floor. Torches guttered as if an unseen hand exhaled. A chill like ice water poured over every soul in the grand hall. Shadows undulated along the walls, pooling into twisted shapes that resembled the Crow ancestors themselves, their hollow eyes flickering with grim anticipation. From the center of the circle, a low moan began, first distant, like a wounded animal, then rising in keening agony. Emily felt the air thicken around her, tendrils of cold slipping beneath her robes. Her pulse thundered as she exchanged a fearful glance with Samuel, who clutched the glowing tear in his trembling fist. Then, at the edge of the chalk circle, a figure materialized, Daniel Crow's apparition, pale and gaunt, his once handsome face drawn into a mask of sorrow and fury. His eyes, hollow yet incandescent with a spectral light, locked onto Emily with an intensity that stole her breath. His arms were outstretched, wrists stripped bare, as if he were shackled by invisible iron. Torn shards of tattered garments hung from his body, each rag fluttering like a ghostly parody of what had once been fine silks. A cry erupted from Lord Gregory's gallery above, and Matilda gasped. From the far side of the hall, a heavy-set figure in a tailored black coat, Nathaniel Blackwood, stepped into the dim light, his features twisted in disbelief. Horace Fenwick emerged behind him, a malicious grin on his pale face, eyes glinting with greedy triumph. At their heels, several masked guests wielding iron lanterns blocked any escape. "Stop this at once." Nathaniel's voice sounded shrill, cracking with greed and fear. "Gabriel, cease this foolishness. You would summon the dead for your own vanity." Gabriel stepped forward, arms raised, the candle of remembrance's flame flickering fiercely in his hand. "This is no vanity, Nathaniel. This is Daniel's only chance at peace. You betrayed him and seized his inheritance. Release him now." Nathaniel sneered, slamming his palm against his chest. "You lie, your cousin died by his own folly. I will not stand by and let you conjure a vengeful wraith to doom us all." The moan from Daniel grew louder, echoing off stone columns. Daniel's form wavered between solid and intangible, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Brother, save me. I cannot rest." Emily's heart ached at the ghost's plea. She realized that Daniel's spirit had been starved of closure for too long. She stepped from the circle, disregarding the threat of Nathaniel's guards. Standing before Daniel's flickering form, she raised her empty hand. "Daniel," she called softly, voice steady despite her fear, "I am Emily Hawthorne. I have taken your place by covenant. Release your anger. Find the love that remains, and go into the light." Daniel's hollow eyes flickered as if struggling with conflicting emotions. His lips parted, and a lament rasped through the hall. "Covenant made, brother lost, blood betrayed," he pointed a ghostly finger at Nathaniel. "You took my life. You shall pay." In that instant, a gale of black wind blasted through the hall, extinguishing every lantern's flame. The shimmering runes at the circle's edge erupted in sickly green light, casting grotesque shadows that writhed like living things. Emily stumbled back as the chandelier above creaked precariously. Gabriel thrust the candle of remembrance forward, its flame blazed white-hot, driving back the malevolent darkness. "Emily, now," he urged, raising the black candle and tracing a final rune in the air with the obsidian tip. His incantation reached a fevered pitch. "By sorrow's end and memory's weep. By candle's light and spirit's keep. I bind thee now in gentle rest. Go forth, dear soul, be truly blessed." Daniel's form convulsed as if caught in a tempest of grief. His cries echoed like thunder before fading to a low, mournful wail. Then, beneath Gabriel and Emily's words, the apparition's shape shimmered and collapsed inward, releasing a final, sorrowful sigh that filled the hall. In that final breath, the ghost's face softened, peace replacing anguish before dissolving into motes of silver light that drifted upward and vanished through the roof's narrow slats. The green glow of the runes died. Every torch and lantern reignited simultaneously, shedding warm light on a now still hall. The chandeliers overhead shook once and then hung motionless as if nothing had disturbed them. The hush that followed felt sacred, as though the manor itself had exhaled a long-held breath. Gabriel lowered the candle of remembrance, its flame dimming to a gentle glow. Samuel approached, still clutching the empty crystal vial. Emily knelt beside him and gently touched his shoulder. "You did it, Samuel. You saved him." Samuel's eyes shimmered with tears, but a serene calm lay over his features. I didn't know I could be so strong," he whispered. "He's at peace now." He looked toward where Daniel had vanished. "Is he truly free?" Gabriel placed a hand on Samuel's back. "Yes. The burden that bound him has been lifted." He locked eyes with Matilda, who was visibly shaken but relieved. "Thank you, both of you. Without you, this ritual would have failed." Emily rose and turned toward the assembled guests. Nathaniel and Horace slunk back into the shadows, their eyes wide with astonishment and dread. Guests murmured among themselves, glancing from one another with uneasy fascination. Lord Gregory, supported by two aides, descended the gallery steps and stood at the head of the hall, his once frailty replaced by a sudden vigor. His gray eyes, usually so cold, glinted with gratitude as he nodded to Gabriel and Emily. "You have saved my son's soul and restored honor to the Crow name. Henceforth, the blood debt is repaid." His gaze cantered to Nathaniel and Horace, who avoided his glance. "Those who would subvert this house, beware. Raven and Rose demand justice." Under a brotherhood of gasps, Nathaniel's pale cheek twitched, and Horace's lips tightened. They exchanged a furtive glance, their malicious intentions thwarted. With an inarticulate growl, Nathaniel turned and led Horace from the hall. Rumor would soon spread through Ravenwood that the candle had burned brighter than any ember had in living memory. In the aftermath, as guests filtered away, Gabriel approached Emily. His dark hair had fallen loose from its restraint, and his eyes, for once, reflected relief rather than burden. He took her hand, the warmth of his touch banishing the chill that had clung to her for weeks. "You were magnificent," he murmured. "Without your courage, this would have been impossible." Emily let out a slow breath. "I could not have done it without you and without Samuel." She glanced at the boy, who stood shyly among the servants. For the first time, he seemed unafraid of the manor's shadows, as though Daniel's passage had cleansed the darkness from these stones. Matilda approached with a quiet smile. "Lord Gregory has declared this night a turning point for the Crow lineage. From now on, Gabriel is undisputed heir, and Emily, you are embraced as his bride guardian of our family's future." She offered Emily a folded parchment sealed with crimson wax. "This is your new title, Lady Emily Crow, Keeper of Shadows. Wear it with pride." Emily accepted the parchment with trembling fingers. In that instant, she fully recognized the path she had chosen, to sacrifice everything for her family's honor and, in return, find not only a new name but a destiny intertwined with a noble lineage. Reborn from sorrow. Across the hall, Lord Gregory placed a hand on Gabriel's shoulder. "Your vow has been honored. You have freed my blood, and our family is whole again." His voice betrayed relief and sorrow as he added, "The cost was high, but the price for disloyalty would have been greater." Gabriel bowed respectfully. "My uncle, I owe everything to Emily, to her sacrifice and compassion." Emily felt her cheeks warm. In that consecrated moment, she realized that love did not always come in easy forms. Here, it was forged from grief, bound by ritual, and tempered by confrontation with the unseen. Yet it was real and unbreakable. As the guests departed into the chilly pre-dawn, and villagers of Ravenwood whispered of strange lights over Blackthorn Manor, Emily and Gabriel remained in the grand hall. They extinguished the remaining black candles one by one, until only the gentle glow of dawn's first rays filtered through the stained glass window, casting a mosaic of raven wings and thorned roses. Across the polished floor, Gabriel turned to Emily, his expression vulnerable in the burgeoning light. "The Book of Shadows warns that even when one spirit is freed, there remain others, guardians, watchers, and occasional revenants. We must remain ever vigilant. Our union has sealed Daniel's fate, but it has also bound us to Blackthorn's legacy. There will be more challenges, more secrets to unearth. Are you prepared? Emily placed her hand over his. I am. Together, we have faced the darkness and returned. I will stand by you, Gabriel, wherever this path leads. He kissed her knuckles, and together they stepped into the soft glow of morning, two souls bound by love and courage, ready to rebuild a house once sullied by betrayal. Outside, the raven's cry echoed over the hills, a herald of change. In Ravenwood, the townsfolk awoke to whispers that Blackthorn Manor had not claimed another life but instead offered redemption. As they walked down the corridor toward Gabriel's study where the Crow Book of Shadows lay waiting to record the next chapter of their saga, neither noticed a pale hand protruding from one of the carved coffers lining the wall. An ivory skull grin reflected the dawn's light, and a solitary voice, hoarse as a windswept grave, murmured, "You may have freed him, but you cannot silence the watchers beneath these stones. The darkness has other servants." The echo died, and the skull's eye sockets closed as though simply blinking. Outside, the first birds of morning called to the rising sun. In the silent casket, something moved, a single, skeletal finger tracing the carved raven crest, as if awaiting its next command. And so, as Emily and Gabriel embarked on their newfound roles as Lady and Lord of Blackthorn, the manor itself stirred, shifting ever so slightly. Within its ancient walls, secrets yet untold waited for curious eyes and the brave hearts daring enough to uncover them. The true test of Blackthorn's legacy had only begun. The dawn sun had barely risen when Emily awoke to a knock upon her door. Groggy from fitful dreams of shifting shadows, she swung her legs over the edge of the bed and smoothed the folds of her gray linen gown. Despite the exorcism's apparent success the previous night, an unsettling weight still pressed upon her chest. To banish the remnants of sleep, she made her way downstairs to the grand hall. Waiting by the hearth, where embers from last night's ritual still glowed faintly, was Gabriel Crow. He wore a simple white shirt and dark trousers, though his gaze carried the same intensity as before. Behind him, Matilda Graves stood beside a small wooden table, upon which rested a handful of objects, the ebony feather sealed in a velvet pouch, the thorned rose in a tiny crystal vial, and the candle of remembrance casting its lingering glow. The tear of truth remained locked within a glass vial, suspended from Samuel's neck like a treasured pendant. Emily crossed the hall, her footsteps echoing on the stone floor. As she approached, Gabriel offered a small, reassuring smile. "Thank you for rising early," he murmured. "There is much to discuss now that Daniel's spirit has been freed." Emily's eyes flicked to the remnants of last night's circle, the chalked runes still faintly visible beneath a smattering of dust. "Are you certain there are no more spirits to release?" She rubbed her arms as if trying to chase away a memory of cold. Gabriel nodded, though his expression was grave. "I consulted the Book of Shadows after the ritual. No more spirits are listed as bound directly to this hall. But as Daniel's freed spirit pointed out, Blackthorn Manor is layered with ancient wards and watchers. There may be other entities, constructs of old magic that will take umbrage at our disturbance." Matilda joined them, voice low. "Last night, I dreamt of a figure draped in tattered shrouds, whispering that the manor itself would demand retribution. I woke to find the statue of the angel in the chapel had wept again, tiny droplets forming on the marble lips, as if lamenting an unseen loss. She brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. It stopped as soon as the sun rose. I have never seen the statue perform that since the year of Daniel's disappearance. Emily felt her heart thud. If the chapel angel still mourns, then perhaps the ritual did not bind all sorrow. The watchers beneath the stones, are they imprisoned souls, or guardians of older pacts? Gabriel's gaze darkened. It's difficult to say. The book's language is cryptic. It speaks of stones that remember blood and hearts turned to marble. We must investigate further. Today, after breakfast, we will explore the crypt beneath the chapel more thoroughly beyond the sealed sarcophagi. We may find glyphs or inscriptions that reveal what ancient forces still linger here. Emily inhaled, steeling herself. I will go with you. If there are more secrets to uncover, I must face them, too. Gabriel's lips curved as if relieved but remained serious. Very well. We shall begin at midday. For now, I would have us dine with Father. He nodded toward the gallery stairs. My uncle is eager to see us. By mid-morning, the manor's household had resumed its routines. The dining table was laid out with fresh fruit, warm bread, and steaming bowls of porridge. Lord Gregory Crow, though still frail, looked markedly healthier than he had the day before. His once hollow cheeks were rosier, his eyes brighter. He lifted his trembling quill to sign some documents, then set it aside as Emily and Gabriel entered. Lady Emily, Lord Gabriel, he greeted, voice warm. Please, join us. He gestured to the chairs beside him. I have much to discuss, but first, I wish to thank you both. Our lineage is restored, and I intend to purify the manor of its lingering curses. Emily curtsied. Thank you, Lord Crow. We will do our utmost. Lord Gregory nodded at his nephew. Speak with Matilda about restoring the chapel. A proper service must be held this eve. And, Gabriel, I want the crypt doors opened. I have safes and locked compartments down there I wish to inventory. The manor's legal documents must be safely archived. Gabriel exchanged a glance with Emily. Of course, Uncle. We will attend to it. Over breakfast, Lord Gregory asked about Emily's well-being. She assured him she had slept reasonably, though a hint of lingering tension remained. He offered an encouraging smile. You are strong, Lady Emily. Your courage has fortified this house. I have never known a bride to stand so calmly in the face of family ghosts. He paused, looking at Gabriel. There is much work ahead. I will leave matters of the manor in your hands today. As they departed the gallery, Emily realized Lord Gregory's silent hope, that the union of bride and heir would indeed end the Crow curse. She grasped Gabriel's hand and steeled herself for the day's tasks. The castle library served as their morning headquarters. Tall shelves of tomes rose like silent sentinels around a massive oak table, where Emily and Gabriel spread out parchment maps of the manor's lower levels. Candlelight danced over the drawings, corridors winding beneath the chapel, hidden sedilia behind the altar, and the crypt's series of vaults. "We must locate the seal that blocks the crypt's southern alcove," Gabriel explained, tracing a finger along a narrow corridor labeled catacombs. "According to Matilda, there was once a door here, now collapsed. The book mentions access through the Weeping Angel's embrace, which I suspect is a reference to that statue in the chapel." Emily nodded, glancing over the illustrated glyphs in the Book of Shadows. Among the winding runes, she found a passage, "Where marble tears fall into the sacred heart, the way to the hidden heart shall part. Strike true, with feather and rose as ward, lest the stone guardians awaken with discord." She reread the lines. Marble tears, that must be the angel statue. The heart, she pointed to a small drawing, is the altar's base. If we strike there with the proper implement, perhaps the ebony feather as a chisel, it may reveal a hidden passage. Gabriel's eyes darkened with determination. "Then today, we go to the chapel together. I will carry the book on my person. We must be prepared for any unforeseen guardians." He closed the massive volume with careful reverence. "Afterward, I will direct Samuel to check the manor's east wing for any secret legends the staff might know. We need every scrap of knowledge." Emily rose, stretching her arms. "Very well. First, let us secure the chapel and pray for safe passage. The villagers still whisper that the chapel used to be the site of an ancient plague graveyard. Many souls may still linger." Gabriel hesitated. "Emily, there is another reason I hesitate, the servants' wing. Last night, I overheard Nathaniel talking with Horace. They plan to disrupt our work, possibly seal the crypt more completely, and take the manor's key artifacts for themselves. We must move quickly." Emily's jaw clenched. "Then we have little time to waste. Let us proceed." A thick, damp chill greeted them as they passed through the chapel doors. The vaulted ceiling soared overhead, and the statue of the Weeping Angel stood before the altar. From dirt-encrusted corners, flickers of dust motes drifted in shafts of pale sunlight that fought through stone-slim windows. The air was heavy with incense, and a quiet stillness reigned. Gabriel approached the altar, where a shallow basin had once contained holy water. Now it was empty, and the marble beneath glistened with moisture, perhaps after Matilda's midnight vigil. Emily knelt beside the statue and ran her fingers over its carved robes. The angel's downcast face held an expression of infinite sorrow, and silver droplets still clung to its marble lips. "Here," she whispered. "The marble tears. The hearth must be beneath these stepping stones." Emily slipped from her knees and felt along the floor's flagstones, tracing each seam in turn. Gabriel produced a small lantern, its flame wavering. After several minutes, Emily paused at one stone whose surface was slightly raised, a block that seemed to shimmer with a faint, unnatural luster. Gabriel knelt beside her. He drew forth the ebony feather from its velvet pouch, its barbs whispering like distant wings in the silent hall. "Are you ready?" he asked, voice low. Emily nodded, heart hammering. "Strike true." Gabriel pressed the feather's quill into a small groove on the stone's edge. The quill pierced the surface with a chime like a bell's echo, and the stone shifted at his touch. Slowly, deliberately, he twisted the feather until the block clicked and pivoted inward, revealing a narrow descending staircase carved from cold granite. The path plunged into darkness, its bottom lost in shadow. Emily exhaled. "We've found it." Gabriel extended a hand. "Take mine." She grasped his fingers, and together they descended. The stairs seemed to swallow their footsteps, and the air grew denser, tinged with stale earth and a whisper of decay. After a dozen steps, their lantern light revealed a small crypt-vaulted chamber lined with sarcophagi carved from black marble. Each lid bore a raven motif, wings outstretched as if in flight. The heavy silence pressed on their eardrums, and Emily felt her courage falter for a moment. In the far corner, an ancient oak coffer sat half buried beneath rubble. Its lid was adorned with lichen-encrusted glyphs, indecipherable marks that bore a dull emerald glow in the lantern's light. Gabriel stepped forward, his boots echoing against stone. "This must be the sealing coffer that held an elder guardian," he murmured. He placed the Book of Shadows on a nearby sarcophagus. Then, he withdrew the thorned rose from its glass vial, handed it to Emily, and retrieved the ebony feather once more. Emily wrapped her free hand around the rose's stem, its black petals unnaturally supple. "What do we do with it?" she asked. Gabriel's pale fingers traced the glyphs on the oak lid. "The book says, with rose in hand and feather at heart, pierce the lock of stone-born art. The guardian's key shall be set free, and the shadow thralls unbound shall flee." Emily closed her eyes for a moment, steeling her resolve. She pressed the rose's thorn stem to the coffer's central glyph, an image of a raven clutching a chalice. The stem bit into the oak, and the glyph flickered, its emerald glow intensifying. Gabriel placed the ebony feather alongside her rose, creating a trinity of power at the coffer's seal. Emily and Gabriel exchanged a determined glance. At her nod, Gabriel drove the feather's quill into a hollow carved in the oak lid. The stonework groaned as if alive. The rose's petals quivered as the coffer's lid began to shift. A resonance like a distant chant spilled into the crypt, and the glyphs pulsed in emerald brilliance. Emily gripped the rose tighter as a vast presence seemed to awaken within the chamber. The sarcophagi's lids trembled, and a breath of cold wind hissed between the stones. Gabriel lifted the Book of Shadows, reading aloud a counter-incantation from faded margins. "Arise no more, O watcher of old. Thy vigil broken, thy heart turned cold. Born of earth and crowned in stone. Return to silence, emergence undone." As the final words echoed, the oak lid flew back with a thunderous crash, revealing an ornate key carved from black steel, its handle shaped like a thrice-twisted raven's wing. Beneath it, the glyphs that had guarded the coffer crumbled, dissolving into dust. The crypt's oppressive air lightened as the key floated upward into Gabriel's outstretched hand, bathed in the lantern's glow. Emily stepped back, heart pounding. "We did it." Her voice trembled with wonder and relief. But the crypt's shadows did not remain silent. From the far side of the chamber, a low rumble emerged, stones grinding as if something darker, older than memory, stirred within. The lids of 2 sarcophagi slid open slowly, revealing empty hollows and blackness deeper than night itself. From each, a pair of eyes glowed with green flame. Shapes coalesced, figures of twisted stone and shadow, winged creatures carved from grief and malice. Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Gabriel, behind us." Gabriel swung the lantern high, casting light upon the advancing forms. They were gargoyle-like, obsidian visages, wings folded like cramped sails, claws that scraped the floor. Their eyes flickered with anger as they lunged forward. Gabriel tightened his grip on the raven key. "Emily, stand behind me." The first gargoyle attacked with swift claws, but Gabriel held the key aloft. Light radiated from its twisted steel, forming a protective shield. As the creature's claws struck, sparks of emerald fire flared, then died. With a wordless determination, Gabriel plunged the key into the floor between the 2 open sarcophagi, chanting, "By Raven's wing and elder might, bind these forms that roam the night. In onyx key and circle of grace, return to ash, depart this place." A searing light erupted from the point where key met stone. The gargoyles shrieked as if their very essence was being torn. Within moments, they crumbled into piles of black dust that swirled upward, then vanished through hidden fissures in the crypt walls. Only the echo of their cries remained, as if the chamber itself mourned their passing. Emily sank to her knees, trembling. "Gabriel, are you all right?" He withdrew the key, now dim but still warm to the touch. Sweat beaded on his brow. "Yes. The guardians are quelled, for now." He turned his gaze to Emily, relief flooding his features. "Thanks to you." They took a moment to gather their breath. Above them, rats scurried within the vaulted arches, their squeaks the only sign of life left. Emily rose, steadied by Gabriel's hand, and stepped over the shattered glyphs. She closed her eyes for a moment, inhaling the crypt's stale air. "I understand now why this manor has remained unsettled. These guardians were bound to protect secrets older than Crow's lineage. We have released them, but what if there are more?" Gabriel nodded grimly. "The book warns, where one lock falls, the ripple awakens slumbering tides. We may have freed the guardians here, but there are wards throughout the manor, catacombs beneath the servants' quarters, crypts in the northern tower, and the hidden vaults beyond the library's west wing. Each now opens a door to what was once sealed." He brushed rubble from the book's leather surface. We need to rebind these wards or risk even greater peril. Emily swallowed hard, her heart pounding. Then our work isn't done. We must be diligent. We must find the manor's heartstone. It's said to be the anchor of all wards. If we can re-anchor it, perhaps the rest will remain still. She recalled a line in the book, "The heart that beats beneath the hearth shall steady the tides of wrath." Gabriel's gaze sharpened. Yes. The heartstone is rumored to be beneath the great hearth in the manor's main foyer. It was sealed by my great-great-grandmother, Esmeralda Crow, after the plague. If we can locate the hidden chamber there, we may be able to renew the ward. Emily nodded, steeling herself. She felt Gabriel's steady presence at her side, and despite her exhaustion, a fierce determination took hold. They would face whatever darkness remained, for each step freed more of Blackthorn's soul and bound them more tightly to its fate. Leaving the crypt behind, they ascended the stairs, locking the oak coffer behind them. At the chapel, Emily paused by the weeping angel statue, now dry and silent. She whispered a word of thanks, hoping her gratitude might linger in marble. Above, the manor's corridors beckoned with half-hidden doorways and whispered promises. The future was uncertain, but Emily knew she and Gabriel would face it together, bound by love, duty, and a lineage transformed by sacrifice. Outside, dawn's first light swept across Ravenwood's mist-shrouded hills as if heralding a new era for Blackthorn Manor. Within the grand hall, they found Samuel and Matilda waiting in quiet reverence. Samuel offered Emily the rose and the feather once more, while Gabriel held the black steel raven key. The crypt's chamber behind them lay silent, its guardians laid to rest. Yet there was no solace in the sanctuary of stone. Matilda's voice broke the stillness. "I have gathered notes about secret passageways in the old servants' wing. I believe there is a tunnel connecting the foyer hearth to a hidden vault, one that holds the crown seal. Without it, we cannot re-anchor the heartstone." Gabriel enclosed the Book of Shadows in his coat. "Then to the hearth we go. Lady Emily, prepare the warding ritual. Sam, find a suitable vessel for the heartstone, should we unearth it?" Emily exchanged a determined glance with Gabriel. "I am ready." As they made their way through the corridors to the great hall, the manor seemed to stir around them. A distant gust rattled windows along the west wing. A lone raven cawed atop the battlements, its cry echoing across stone eaves. The invisible watchers of Blackthorn Manor lingered in every shadow, silent observers of the heir's and bride's next move. And so, hand in hand, Emily and Gabriel stepped into the grand hall's center. Beneath the hearth's grand hearthstone, where embers danced and ashes lay cool, the hearthstone awaited reawakening. Their hearts thrummed with purpose. With every step, they bound themselves more deeply to Blackthorn's future, determined to forge a legacy of hope from the ashes of centuries-old sorrow. Tonight, beneath moon and star, they would confront the manor's final secret, the heartstone, the anchor of Crow's fate, and the last barrier between Blackthorn's haunted past and a peaceful tomorrow. The glow of morning light had fully eclipsed the gloom that clung to Blackthorn Manor's corridors. Though the sun now streamed through stained glass windows in multicolored shards, Emily Hawthorne felt no comfort. Beneath her gown, her heart hammered with equal parts resolve and dread. With Gabriel Crow by her side, she had laid Daniel's spirit to rest and quelled the crypt guardians. Now, they faced the final test, renewing the ward around the heartstone beneath the heart. If they failed, Blackthorn's watchers would rise anew, more vengeful, more potent than before. After a simple breakfast of crusty bread and mild cheese in the great hall, Gabriel led Emily to the east wing where a concealed panel in the wall had once contained a latch. Matilda and Samuel watched from the threshold, eyes wide. Gabriel pressed the raven key into a tiny keyhole hidden behind the panel, and with a soft click, the stone wall slid inward to reveal a narrow passage. "Through here," Gabriel whispered, offering Emily his hand. The passage leads directly to the sub-hearth vault. Despite the warmth of the day, a chill radiated from the secret stairwell that wound downward into darkness. Emily inhaled as her boots crunched along dust-laden steps, each creak echoing ominously. "You should carry the Book of Shadows," she advised, noticing Gabriel's empty hands. "In case we need to reference any incantation." He nodded and retrieved the volume from Matilda. "Good thought." He handed it to Emily, their fingers brushing. Though words went unspoken, Emily felt Gabriel's gratitude and reliance. She steeled herself for whatever lay below. At the bottom of the stairs, a low-ceilinged corridor stretched ahead, lined with flickering torches in iron sconces. Tattered tapestries clung to the walls, depictions of crow ancestors, their eyes cast downward, as if mourning an endless sorrow. Emily brushed a hand over one tapestry, a regal woman cradling a black raven amid a storm. In her lap lay a heart-shaped jewel set with blood-red garnets, the heartstone itself, she realized, portrayed centuries ago, before Esmeralda Crow had sealed it beneath the heart. Gabriel pointed to a jagged crack in the stone floor near the corridor's end. "This is the seal that blocks the entrance to the vault. The heartstone's chamber lies directly beneath the hearth above. Once we break through, we must act quickly to perform the renewal ritual." Emily's heart thrummed. She knelt and ran her fingers over the crack. It felt smooth yet powerfully resistant, as if energized by invisible forces. She withdrew the ebony feather from her satchel, its quill still warm from last night's exertions, and pressed its tip into the crack's narrowest point. A faint hum reverberated through the air. Gabriel placed the midnight rose beside her. "The book says the rose can channel the ward's energy. Use its thorns to widen the crack once the feather fractures it." Emily took a deep breath and pressed the feather's quill deeper. A ringing tone rang out, a dissonant whisper of iron meeting bone. She gripped the feather firmly, leaning into the strike. The stone groaned but held fast. Sweat beaded on her brow, her arms trembled. Gabriel knelt beside her. "Sing the Covenant of Crow's Heart," he urged. "The union of bride, heir, and ward will tip the balance." Emily closed her eyes and began in a clear, resolute voice. "By heart's embrace and Crow's true name, renew the beat that slum bears tame. No shadows bind, no sorrow reign. Let love restore this ancient chain. Her words resonated like a prayer through the corridor. The crack's edges began to fracture, the stone flickering with pale green light. With that, Emily pressed the rose's thorn stem into the widening fissure. The rose's petals unfurled, releasing a faint glow that coalesced around the crack. The feather quivered and snapped, splitting the stone further as if its quill were a chisel guided by arcane wool. With a final wrench, the stone split in two, revealing a circular bronze ring inset flush with the floor. Gabriel extended the heart-shaped raven key and inserted it into a keyhole at the ring's center. The bronze plate pivoted, descending on hidden hinges with a resonant clang. Beneath lay a dimly lit spiral staircase leading into a vaulted chamber sealed against time, its air thick with dust and ages of stifled magic. Cautiously, they descended. As their feet touched the dusty floor of the sub-hearth vault, Emily felt as if they had entered a cathedral of shadow, an oval chamber dominated by a massive stone hearth whose base was carved into a raven's wings unfurled around a central plinth. Atop the plinth sat a stone disc, the hearthstone itself crimson veins coursing over its polished obsidian surface as though alive. It pulsed faintly, as if breathing with suppressed power. Gabriel produced the Book of Shadows, opening it to a chapter titled Renewal of the Heart. Its pages were brittle but legible. We must place the feather fragment, the rose, and the candle of remembrance around the hearthstone and recite the rite of binding. Then, the ward will be restored. Emily set the broken feather's remaining quill fragment at the stone's north edge. Gabriel placed the thorned rose at the east, and Samuel positioned the candle of remembrance to the south. For the west, Emily withdrew the tear of truth's vial from her neck, its crystal surface shimmering with the single glowing droplet. With trembling fingers, she set it in a carved recess. Instantly, the chamber's ambient light shifted, the hearthstone's pulsing becoming more insistent. Gabriel cleared his throat. "Stand to the side. I will recite the first portion." He raised the book. Candlelight danced over the pages as he intoned. "O heart of crow, long locked in grief, receive these tokens, symbol of relief. By quill once shattered, by rose once thorned, by flame reclaimed, by tear reborn. Awake, O stone, renew thy core. Seal this house from wraiths evermore." As Gabriel's voice echoed, the hearthstone's pulsing quickened into a steady beat. Emily felt a vibration through the solace of her feet. She exchanged a glance with Gabriel, who nodded toward her. She spoke confidently, reciting the second portion. "From love of kin to bride's vow sworn, I bind thee now this early morn. Let no shadow trespass this keep. Let no ancient guardian wake from sleep. By vow and heart and blade of truth, restore our line, grant eternal youth." The tear of truth released a rush of pure light that streamed out and encircled the hearthstone like a halo. The flame of remembrance guttered, sending a burst of cold fire over the chamber, smothering residual sunken spirits. Samuel, his face pale yet determined, added a whispered oath, "I pledge this tear to free the lost, to guard with innocence, and to cherish love's cost." The moment he spoke, the heartstone's crimson veins brightened to fiery red, as if the stone's blood had been rekindled. A deep, resonant hum filled the chamber like 1,000 wings beating in unison. The heart's carved wings began to glow, and across the plinth's base, an intricate network of runes shimmered alive. Emily could feel a surge of warmth sweep through the vault, chasing away the chill and the sense of something watching from the shadows. Gabriel closed the book with finality. "It is done," he murmured. "The Heartstone's ward has been renewed. The manor's magic is now bound by love and by Crow's kinship. If any darkness stirs, the ward will hold." Emily exhaled, relief flooding her chest. For a moment, the overwhelming weight of responsibility lifted. The chamber felt tranquil, almost wholly bathed in the Heartstone's glow. But their victory had only begun. As they turned to ascend the spiral staircase, a low rumble sounded from the far recesses of the chamber. Emily's blood ran cold. She glanced back. A figure, cloaked in shifting shadows, rose from behind a collapsed sarcophagus. Its face was featureless but for two glowing coals of green flame where eyes should have been. It perched atop rubble, skeletal wings outstretched like a raven's silhouette against the Heartstone's radiance. Gabriel caught sight of the apparition's form and drew his coat tight. "Another guardian," he growled. "It must not leave this chamber." The shadowed figure exhaled a gust of inky blackness that snuffed out the candle of remembrance. All that remained was the Heartstone's red glow, a beacon amid growing darkness. Emily's knees buckled, but Gabriel caught her arm and helped her steady. Samuel whimpered, clutching the vial of light. "Emily," Gabriel whispered urgently, "we must complete the ritual to banish it. Focus on the heart's ward." He snatched the remaining quill of the ebony feather, the smallest fragment, and held it high. Emily closed her eyes, recalling every syllable of the rite. She placed her hand upon the Heartstone, feeling its pulse thrumming like a living heart beneath her palm. Gabriel, eyes locked on the guardian, spoke the final invocation in a voice that cracked with defiance. "By Crow's last vow, by bride and heir, depart this place, return to air. No stone may bind thee, no shadow stay. Fade from this realm, take sorrow away." As the words fell silent, the Heartstone's light flared, sending a shockwave across the chamber. The guardian's form writhed as though caught in a gale. Its glowing eyes flickered and then dimmed. A shriek like 1,000 ravens echoed as the creature dissolved into motes of black dust, which swirled into the Heartstone's crevices before vanishing altogether. The chamber's ward seemed to inhale, sealing any fissures through which darkness had seeped. Emily sank to the floor, breathless. "It's gone," she whispered, voice raw. "It's truly gone." Gabriel knelt beside her, pressing a gentle hand to her back. "The final guardians are quelled. The Heartstone's ward is unbroken again." He let out a slow breath. "Blackthorn Manor is cleansed, for now." They made their way upward, emerging back into the chapel, where the morning light seemed to shine with renewed warmth. Matilda awaited at the altar, her eyes brimming with tears. You have succeeded. The chapel feels lighter, freed of its burden. Samuel approached, his small figure calmer, more assured than before. I heard the guardians weep as they left. He looked at Emily. They were sad to be bound so long. Emily knelt, placing a hand on his shoulder. You gave them peace, Samuel. You helped set them free. Their mourning is ended. Gabriel placed a protective arm around Emily's waist. Now, we must return to the living. He led Emily down the corridor toward the great hall. My uncle will want to conduct the All Hallows service tonight in the chapel. After that, we can rest, knowing that no wraith or guardian may harm this house again. Emily's eyes sparkled with tears of relief. Together, we have faced the darkness and prevailed. She looked up at Gabriel, gratefulness radiating from her features. I would follow you into any shadow. Gabriel's lips curved in a rare, genuine smile. And I would walk beside you, evermore. He squeezed her hand and guided her into the great hall, where Lord Gregory waited beneath the stained glass raven, his eyes alight with pride. As they stepped through the doorway, the manor seemed to sigh in contentment. The rafters creaked loyally overhead. Outside, the autumn sun warmed the courtyard, and the ivy that clung to the walls glowed with golden hues. The villagers of Ravenwood, who once spoke of Blackthorn Manor with fear, now passed in respectful silence, sensing that the curse that had plagued the Crow family for generations was finally lifted. Inside, Lord Gregory rose unsteadily and extended his arms. My daughter, my son, welcome back from the depths. You have saved not only Daniel, but every crow who fell before his time. Blackthorn rises again. Emily curtsied, bowing her head. Thank you, Uncle Gregorius. It was our honor. Lord Gregory turned to Samuel. And you, brave boy, your innocence reclaimed 1,000 souls. This house owes you debt beyond measure. He placed a warm hand on Samuel's head. You shall always be welcome here. Samuel's smile, shy yet proud, lit the chamber. Thank you, Lord Gregory. His eyes flicked to Emily and Gabriel, gratitude shining in their depths. As the household gathered to prepare for the evening service, Emily stole a moment with Gabriel in the shadow of the hearth. She traced the carved plinth where the hearthstone had been renewed. Our journey. I never imagined it would lead us so deep. She touched his arm. I am grateful you stood beside me. Gabriel's gaze softened. Without you, I could never have done any of this. The manor's blood bond needed new life, your compassion, your courage. Together, we have forged a new path. Emily glanced upward at the carved raven crest above the hearth. What happens now? The book warned that even sealed, Blackthorn's watchers may rise again when the bloodline falters. Gabriel folded his arms. Then we will remain vigilant. My vow to the manor is eternal. As long as future generations of crow heed the heart's word, the watchers will remain at rest. And I vow to you, Emily, that I will protect you and this house. Our union is not merely a marriage of convenience, it is a bond of destiny. Emily nodded, tears pooling as the weight of his words settled in her heart. Then I will stand by you, Lord Gabriel, as your wife, as your partner and as the guardian of Blackthorn's legacy. He brushed a lock of hair from her cheek, raking his dark gaze over her face. My Lady Emily, Keeper of Shadows, may our love shine brighter than any ward, and may our courage guide this house to peace. They shared a tender kiss beneath the hearth's silent vigil, the first of many in the new dawn that rose over Ravenwood. As the great hall filled with the soft murmur of preparations for the evening's All Hallows service where villagers and servants alike would offer candles and prayers in honor of the freed soul's Emily. And Gabriel knew in their hearts that their trials had only strengthened their bond. Those shadows might stir beyond the horizon, for now, Blackthorn Manor stood bathed in the light of hope and renewal. The All Hallows service had passed, solemn and sacred. Dozens of candles lit the great chapel in Blackthorn Manor, their flames swaying as villagers whispered prayers for the long departed. For the first time in decades, the manor pulsed with quiet reverence rather than dread. Yet even as the light flickered in the chapel's stained glass, a new thread stirred, subtle, cunning, and hungry. Emily Hawthorne had barely slept. After the ritual to renew the Heartstone's ward, she felt as though the manor itself had imprinted a part of its essence into her. When she closed her eyes, she saw flashes of ancient memories that were not her own, faces of crow ancestors, burning eyes of former guardians, and one name whispered over and over again, Ilarion. She mentioned it over breakfast to Gabriel. He froze mid-sip of his tea. Ilarion was my great-grandfather's twin, he said. A crow who was erased from the family records. Legend says he rejected the blood vow to the Heartstone, and instead forged his own covenant in the forest beyond Ravenwood. Emily felt the hair on her neck rise. I think he's calling to us. Gabriel leaned forward, intensity in his voice. Then that means the Heartstone's magic has awakened something even deeper, something tied not to the manor, but to the land itself. Without another word, they prepared for a journey into the forbidden woods east of the estate known to locals as the Whispering Hollow. It was a place no villager dared enter after sunset. Not because of wolves, but because of the unclaimed voices that echoed through the trees, souls never bound by ritual, never laid to rest. Matilda tried to stop them. No one returns from that forest, she warned, eyes wide. Even the crows avoid it. If Ilarion's magic still lingers, it is not a welcome for the living. But Emily was resolute. If there is a deeper danger, we must face it now before it rises again. Gabriel handed her a dagger forged from silver and onyx. This was once Ilarion's blade. It may protect you, or it may guide him to us. By midday, they stood before the arched boughs of Whispering Hollow. The light dimmed unnaturally beneath the canopy, and an uncanny silence swallowed the sounds of the manor behind them. The trees were gnarled and bent as though in mourning, their roots twisting like fingers trying to escape the soil. As they stepped across the threshold, Emily heard the whispering. It wasn't wind, it was names, spoken in soft, pleading tones. Alaric. Helena. Isolde. Gabriel touched her arm. Those are the lost. Crow blood that wandered here and never returned. We're walking among echoes. They followed a trail of moss-covered stones until they reached a small glade. At its center stood an ancient altar, cracked and covered in ivy. Upon it lay a blackened book with no title, pages fluttering despite the still air. Emily approached. As her fingers brushed the book's surface, a sudden gust blew through the glade. Shadows erupted from the ground, coalescing into a shape, a man draped in dark robes, his eyes glowing silver. Ilarion Crow, Gabriel whispered. The spectre nodded. My name has not been spoken by kin in over 2 centuries, the figure said, voice like rustling leaves. You disturb a silence I chose. Emily swallowed hard. The Heartstone is restored. The Watchers are gone. But your name keeps echoing. Why? Ilarion's gaze fixed on her. Because the seal is not complete. You have bound a manor. But you have not bound me. Gabriel stepped forward. What do you want? I want peace. But I cannot pass on until the covenant I forged is undone. He pointed to the altar. There is a stone buried beneath this altar. It contains the names of all crows who denied the Heartstone. Burn that list, and my soul will return to the roots. Emily hesitated. And what will be unleashed if we do? Ilarion's face darkened. You will awaken the original guardian, the Hollow Watcher. It sleeps beneath Ravenwood still, bound only by the strength of the living line. Gabriel's breath caught. You're saying, if we burn the stone, we may end your curse but awaken a threat far older than Blackthorn. Ilarion's eyes flared. It is your choice. To bear my echo forever, or face the shadow once and for all. Emily and Gabriel stood in silence, the weight of history pressing down upon them. Then Emily stepped forward, drew Ilarion's dagger, and struck the altar's base. The stone cracked with a mournful wail. Beneath it was a glowing shard, a sliver of obsidian etched with crow names lost to time. She touched it. Visions flooded her mind, fields burning, the Watcher rising from a well of ash, crow ancestors fleeing through moonlight. Her knees buckled. Gabriel caught her, tears in his eyes. I saw it too, he whispered. We can't let that thing wake. Emily clenched the stone in her fist. Then we won't burn it. We bury it beneath the Heartstone, forever bound and silenced. As if hearing their vow, Ilarian's ghost closed his eyes. Wise. You have chosen stewardship over erasure. May your line be stronger than mine. With that, he faded, scattering into a mist that swirled among the glade's roots before vanishing. Emily and Gabriel returned to Blackthorn in silence, the shard wrapped in silk. That night, they placed it beneath the hearthstone in a hidden alcove, sealing it with runes from the Book of Shadows. No one in the village spoke of the forest again. But sometimes, when the wind blew just right, you could still hear names whispered in the leaves. And Emily, now Lady Hawthorne Crow, would sit by the hearth, guarding the legacy of both light and shadow. The season had turned. Autumn's breath grew colder, and a silent fog often clung to the hedgerows of Blackthorn Manor. The ritual had restored peace for now, but Emily felt it deep in her bones. Something still loomed beyond the veil. The shard they buried under the hearthstone, etched with the names of fallen crows, radiated a dormant energy that pulsed faintly through the manor's halls, like a heartbeat refusing to die. Gabriel noticed it too. He had taken to pacing the corridors late into the night, lantern in hand, listening to the whisper of old wood and ancient stone. "We've silenced Ilarian," he said one evening as he joined Emily by the window overlooking the forest. "But we didn't unbind him. That shard, it's like we buried fire beneath the floorboards." Emily didn't argue. She had felt dreams bleed into waking moments, visions of a great well, covered in runes and coiled in thorny roots. From within, she heard the grinding of stone, like something stirring in chains. "It's waking," she said, voice almost a breath. "Whatever was beneath Ravenwood before the crows, it's dreaming again." Gabriel frowned. "Then it's time we learn what it is. We need the first tome." Emily blinked. "The first tome? I thought the Book of Shadows was the oldest text." Gabriel shook his head. "There was one before. Written in runes and inked in blood. It predates Blackthorn. My great-uncle said it was sealed in the mausoleum of the Hollow Warden, the very first guardian before the Hearthstone existed." Emily stood. "Then that's where we go." The Blackthorn mausoleum stood in the old cemetery on the cliff's edge, shrouded in fog, lashed by sea winds, and forgotten by time. They approached at dawn, cloaks tied against the chill. The door was carved with a single phrase: "Let none disturb the warden's rest, lest the hollow awaken." "Comforting," Emily murmured, running her hand across the etched warning. Gabriel produced a rusted key from beneath his collar, a family heirloom passed through generations. With a twist and groan, the stone door creaked open. A wave of musty air and incense-drenched silence swept over them. Inside, the tomb was lined with alcoves holding the bones of ancient wardens, their names long worn smooth by time. At the center, a circular dais held a single pedestal. Resting atop it was a black tome bound in serpent's leather, sealed with a clasp of bone and moonstone. "The first tome," Gabriel whispered. As Emily reached toward it, a shadow moved behind them. She turned just in time to see a robed figure standing in the doorway, hooded, silent, and utterly still. Gabriel stepped forward. "Who are you?" The figure lifted its head. A face of ash-gray skin, eyes stitched shut with silver thread. "I am the last warden," it rasped. "You seek the tome. Then you must prove you're right." Before either could react, the chamber shifted. Walls dissolved into a whirlwind of darkness. Emily felt herself falling, then landing on hard earth. They were in a vision, a memory woven by the tome itself. A voice echoed around them, "Witness the birth of the hollow." The world reformed around them. They stood in a vast field under a red sky. Villagers knelt around a massive well at the forest's edge, chanting in a forgotten tongue. The ground cracked. From the well rose a creature of shadow and bark, a skeletal beast, cloaked in mist and crowned with antlers made of bone and ember. The Hollow Watcher. It spoke in 1,000 voices, "I am the price. I am the pact. I do not sleep, I only wait." Emily stepped back, heart thudding. This was before the Heartstone. Gabriel stared, transfixed. They summoned it to protect the land, but they never controlled it. They had to bury it. The villagers scattered. The Watcher devoured them, not with teeth, but with memories. Wherever it passed, people forgot who they were, names, faces, even their own blood. Only one remained, a woman in a white veil, holding a dagger. "She is the first guardian," Emily whispered. The woman carved symbols into the earth, sacrificing her name, her shadow, and her heart to seal the Watcher beneath the well. Her veil fell away, and for a moment, Emily saw her face, one that looked uncannily like her own. The vision shattered. They were back in the tomb. The stitched-eyed warden had vanished. The tome now lay open, pages fluttering as if breathing. Gabriel grabbed Emily's hand. "You saw it too?" She nodded slowly. She gave everything to trap the Watcher. Her own identity. "I think she was my ancestor." They carried the tome back to Blackthorn and spent the night translating its archaic script. It spoke of a second seal, a dormant bond between the land, the bloodline, and the well of memory. It warned that if the seal weakens, the Watcher will feed again. And the final line chilled them to the bone. "The Watcher wakes not for death but for forgetfulness. Should the bloodline forget its roots, the seal will break." Emily sat in stunned silence. It's not just about spirits or shadows. It's about memory. Legacy. If we don't remember who we are, the pact ends. Gabriel placed his hand on hers. "Then we must do more than survive. We must preserve the memory of everything, the guardians, the sacrifices, the truths that hurt. That's the only way to keep the Watcher buried." A sudden wind howled through the manor, rattling the shutters. From the forest came a low moan, one that hadn't been heard in centuries. The hollow was stirring. And this time, it wasn't bound to the forest alone. The forest moaned through the night like a grieving widow. Emily Hawthorne stood at the manor's observatory window, staring into the mist-laced darkness. Down below, where the woods met the boundary of the old chapel, something pulsed a light, faint but rhythmic, like a heartbeat under soil. She had not slept in days. Dreams came too vividly now, tangled with whispers and faces that weren't hers. The first tome lay open on the table behind her, revealing a map of ley lines, ancient veins of energy running beneath the manor, converging at a place labeled only, Vigil's Flame. Gabriel entered quietly, his expression grim. "There's been movement," he said, holding up a talisman. Its silver threads were trembling. "Matilda says the watchers at the forest edge no longer sing." "That means the hollow is leaking through," Emily murmured. "Not fully awakened but stretching." Gabriel nodded. "And the villagers? They're forgetting." Emily turned sharply. "Forgetting what?" "Names. Loved ones. Birthdays. Old debts. Everything that roots them." He didn't need to explain further. The Hollow Watcher fed not on flesh, but memory. They had to act now. Their only lead was the symbol of Vigil's Flame, which the first guardian had once used to seal the hollow beneath Ravenwood. According to the tome, it lay far beneath the manor's oldest foundations in the catacombs that had been closed for 3 generations. But the way was treacherous. Matilda led them as far as the sealed passage in the old wine cellar, then pressed a kiss to Gabriel's forehead. "If you see the weeping woman in white, do not follow. She guards the gate and she remembers everything you wish to forget." With that, she turned and vanished into the candlelit gloom. Emily and Gabriel forced open the gate, descending into the catacombs with torches. The walls were lined with plagues' names long worn away, bones placed with reverence but long since abandoned. A wind moved against them, though no air should have stirred. After nearly an hour of winding through crypts and tunnels, they reached a massive stone arch carved with an eye encircled by roots. Vigil's Flame. But something blocked their way. A figure stood before the gate, a girl of no more than 10, her skin pale as wax, her hair tangled in leaves. "I remember you," she whispered to Emily. "Even if you don't remember me." Emily's voice caught. "Who are you?" The girl tilted her head. "I was your sister. In another life. Another name." Gabriel stepped forward. "This is an echo," he said. "The Watcher is trying to root into your mind." But Emily felt the weight of guilt, heavy and cold. The child's eyes were not cruel, they were pleading. "I don't want to forget you," Emily said. And with those words, the figure vanished, dissolving into a single thread of silver mist that wound around the torch's flame, merging into it. The stone gate opened. The chamber beyond was vast and circular, its ceiling domed with a constellation of glowing runes. In the center stood a brazier vigil's flame burning blue with eternal fire. Around it were 4 pillars, each carved with the name, Memory, Blood, Shadow, Light. Emily stepped forward and felt the weight of countless souls watching. The air shimmered. Then a voice boomed, not aloud, but in their minds. The flame dims. The hollow feeds. Choose what you will burn to renew the seal. Gabriel whispered, it demands sacrifice. Emily looked to the pillars. One must be lit with fire from within us. A sudden pain bloomed in her chest, memories of her father's laughter, of hiding beneath velvet curtains as a child, of being chosen to marry into the Crow bloodline. If I give up my memories, she said slowly, we can seal the Watcher. But I won't remember you, Gabriel. He stepped beside her, grief carving deep into his features. And if I offer my blood, the line may end. We have no heir. No one left to remember. They stood in silence. And then, without warning, Gabriel sliced his palm and pressed it to the blood pillar. Then let my blood seal it, so that yours can remember, he said. You must carry the story, Emily. Even if I fade. The pillar flared red, the brazier roared, and runes ignited across the dome. The earth trembled. From the forest above, a scream tore the sky. The Watcher had awakened, but its full emergence was halted. Roots snapped and recoiled. Fog cleared. The names whispered in the village ceased. The seal held. But Emily turned to Gabriel and found his eyes unfocused. He blinked. I know you, he said softly. But I don't know why. Tears fell freely down her cheeks. You gave up your legacy, she whispered. To preserve ours. She took his hand, pressed it over her heart, and said, then let me be your memory. Back in the manor, life slowly returned to normal. The villagers remembered their families. The fogs lifted. The chapel bells rang again. Only Emily and Matilda knew the cost. Beneath the hearthstone and the seal of flame, a name was now etched in silver, Gabriel Hawthorne Crow, the memory that burned brightest. And in her dreams, Emily would still see the hollow Watcher, not rising, not hungry, but bound by love, memory, and flame. Forever. Winter crept slowly over Blackthorn, veiling its valleys in frost and memory. The hollow Watcher had been silenced, its hunger stayed by Gabriel's sacrifice. Yet Emily could not rest. Not while she alone bore the memory of what had been lost. Gabriel, once the sharpest voice in the manor, now wandered the corridors as a stranger. His gaze, though warm, no longer held recognition. He would smile at Emily, ask her name, and then laugh apologetically when she whispered it through tears. I feel like I used to know you, he once said. But every time I try to remember, it's like reaching for smoke. Emily visited the flame chamber daily, whispering pieces of their past into its glow. She feared the seal would fray if too much was forgotten. And then came the raven. One morning, it perched atop the hearthstone, jet black and silent. In its beak, a scroll tied with crimson twine. Emily unfurled it to find a single phrase, written in a script older than crow blood. The betrayed sigil stirs in the north. The memory keeper is not alone. She showed the message to Matilda, whose face went pale. Betrayed sigil. She whispered. That name hasn't been spoken in 500 years. Emily's voice was tight. Then it's time we speak it again. According to the first tome, the betrayed sigil was once a sister order to the guardians of the flame. They were keepers of false memory, recorders of untruth, entrusted with weaving fictions into history to protect ancient secrets. But they grew hungry for power and tried to rewrite the pact of the Hollow Watcher. The guardians banished them north, beyond the Bleeding Pass. Most believed they'd died out. But the raven proved otherwise. Emily prepared to leave. Matilda offered her an amulet laced with ash bark and iron. If they truly return, the old woman said, they'll come for what's left of Gabriel's memory. And through that, they'll breach the seal. Emily turned to Gabriel, who stood watching snowflakes fall from a library window. I'll bring back your name, she whispered. And protect what you gave. The journey north was brutal. Emily rode alone, crossing the frozen rivers of Ravenglade, through the Fogwall Vale, until the spires of an ancient citadel rose from the blizzard, the fortress of Iredcale. It had no guards, no torches, only silence. She entered the black gate and was met by a hall of mirrors. Reflections danced unnaturally, each a warped version of herself. One with eyes full of hatred. One draped in a wedding dress. One cradling a dead child. This place shows what you fear to remember, a voice whispered. From the dark emerged a man in silver robes, his face hidden behind a mask shaped like an hourglass. I am Archivist Kalen, he said. First of the betrayed sigil. We are not your enemies, Lady Crow. Emily drew her blade. You sent the raven. Kalen nodded. Because we need you. And more importantly, we need him. Gabriel. He holds what no guardian remembers, the original pact before the Watcher. Locked in his blood. Not his mind. Emily stepped back. He sacrificed that memory. Kalen's voice deepened. But we can return it. Rewrite the seal. Banish the Watcher forever. She paused. At what cost? Kalen turned. Your memory. All of it? Emily felt the ground shift. If I give you my memory, will you restore his? Kalen raised a hand. Yes. But know this: if you forget, and he remembers, he will mourn you with every breath. That night, Emily sat before the mirror of sacrifice. The ritual was simple. Give a name, lose the meaning behind it. She wrote Emily Hawthorne on a scroll. But as she held it over the flame, she hesitated. A voice echoed in her mind: do not rewrite the fire. Bear it. She dropped the scroll. No, she whispered. We protect memory. We do not trade it. Kalen watched silently. Then the watcher's hunger will rise again. Then I'll feed it something stronger than forgetting, she said. I'll feed it truth. Emily returned to Blackthorn, refusing to let Gabriel's memory stay broken. Each day, she read to him letters they once exchanged, poems he had written, the names of their ancestors. And one day, as she whispered a line from his favorite passage, "You are the lantern I chose in the storm," he blinked. And for a moment, just one, his hand squeezed hers. "Emily," he said. Tears fell. The hollow trembled below but did not rise. Because memory, even when broken, could still be kindled. 3 moons had passed since Emily's return from the north. The name Gabriel had spoken hers still echoed in her mind like a bell rung in fog. He had not fully recovered, but sometimes, in the quiet moments between dreams, he would reach for her hand without knowing why. And that was enough. But the peace did not last. The heartstone began to pulse. At first, a soft hum, like a heartbeat beneath stone. Then came the visions, fractured and fast, of fire-swallowing forests, of silver eyes burning above shattered skies, of a face with no mouth, screaming silently in the dark. Emily knew something had changed. It wasn't just the hollow anymore. Matilda called for her in the dead of night. The old woman stood barefoot before the flame chamber, eyes wide with fear. On the floor, ashes curled into symbols, ones that had not been seen since the age of the Star-forged pact. "Do you know what this means?" Matilda whispered, voice shaking. Emily nodded slowly. "The seal is cracking." "No," Matilda said. "Something is replacing it." They descended into the chamber. The 4 pillars, memory, blood, shadow, and light, were crumbling. In their place, a 5th altar had risen from the floor, pulsing with red gold flame. Upon it, a symbol blazed, a spiral with 13 points, the ember crown. Gabriel appeared behind them, pale, drawn but more lucid than before. "I've seen this," he said. "In dreams. And in pain." Emily touched the symbol. A whisper filled the chamber. "The first flame burns again. And she is coming." Later that night, Emily pored through the first tome, desperate for answers. Buried in the final pages, written in a language only half deciphered, was a legend not even Matilda had spoken of. The Ember Queen. Once, before the Hollow Watcher, before even the Guardians, there was one who bore the fire of memory across the sky. A fallen goddess who refused the sleep of death, choosing instead to splinter her soul into flame and ash, embedding pieces into human bloodlines. Her name was erased. Her story forgotten. But when the seals fray and memories die, she returns to reclaim what was hers. Gabriel's blood had triggered her. And Emily was the spark that drew her flame. The following morning, the sky cracked. No thunder. No storm. Just silence, and then ashes rained from the heavens. Blackthorn Manor burned without fire. Wood hissed but did not blacken. Candles bent backwards. Time froze in the mirror's etch. And from the east came a figure walking the mist, tall, cloaked in flame that moved like silk, and wearing no crown, only a scorched veil. She stopped at the edge of the forest and whispered, "Return my fire, or burn beside it." Matilda collapsed. Gabriel fell to his knees. Emily stood. "I am the keeper," she said. "And I do not fear what has no name." The figure stepped forward. "Then I shall take yours." That night, Emily called upon the rite of unbinding, a forbidden rite never completed in over 1,000 years. With the help of the first tome, she mapped the leyline scars across her own body, connecting them with ash and blood. She would offer a memory not yet lived. The future. If the Ember Queen took her name, she would give her nothing else, not a past to wield, not a future to erase. Gabriel, regaining fragments of who he once was, begged her not to continue. "Let me take your place," he pleaded. But Emily kissed his forehead and whispered, "You already have." In the center of the manor's courtyard, beneath the cracked sky, she met the Queen. The Ember Queen stood motionless as Emily approached, flames dancing around her like living threads. "I give you nothing," Emily said. "But I show you truth." She raised the writ. The ground exploded in blue fire. The past uncoiled, revealing not gods or guardians but humans who became myths to survive. The Watcher. The Sigil. The Guardians. Even the Ember Queen, they were all born of broken choices, not divinity. And she, Emily, was the culmination. The Queen staggered. Her veil burned away. And beneath it was a face identical to Emily's. "You are me," the Queen whispered. "From before the fall. Before the Watcher. I burned my soul. And now I see where it led." Emily reached out. "We are memory. Not gods. Not ghosts. Just memory." The Queen cried, "Flame! and vanished. The skies cleared. The fifth altar crumbled. And Gabriel, watching from the chapel, remembered everything. "Emily," he whispered. "Your name." Lit the sky. The sky above Blackthorn shimmered like a fractured mirror. Faint embers floated upward, dancing in spirals across the fading storm clouds. At the heart of the estate, the ruins of the fifth altar smoldered quietly. The hollow watcher was silent. The Ember Queen, undone. But the ley lines cracked still, trembling like nerves beneath scorched skin. Emily knew, it was not over. Because when you steal fire from gods, you must return it someday. Gabriel stood beside her, whole again, his memory returned in full. But with it came a revelation neither could ignore. "I remember," he whispered, staring at the fractured seal beneath the hearthstone. "I wasn't just part of the pact. I was born from it. My blood is the final tether. And it's fraying." Emily held his hand. "Then we forge a new one." Together, they gathered what remained. The first tome, now cracked and blood-stained. The veil of embers, left behind by the Queen. The final shard of the Watcher's shadow, sealed in Matilda's silver vial. And with these, they descended to the deepest chamber, the hollow core, beneath even the flame vault. A place no guardian had entered in centuries. The walls here whispered in forgotten tongues. The stones wept ink. And in the center stood a bowl of glass and bone, the well of names. Gabriel stepped forward. "If I give my blood again, it may erase me from the line forever." Emily turned to him, eyes fierce. "Then I give mine too. Let the pact no longer be bound by blood alone. Let it be bound by memory willingly given." She drew a blade across her palm. Gabriel did the same. Together, they bled into the well. The chamber howled. Light erupted, not fire, but a blinding white memory, every name lost, every face erased by the Watcher, every echo consumed by the Queen returned. The manor shook, but did not fall. Above, the villagers stood outside their homes, watching the skies clear. They felt their ancestors stir within them. They remembered lullabies their mothers had never sung, names written in graves long lost, and tears for loved ones they had never known they'd forgotten. In the chapel, Matilda collapsed at the altar smiling. She remembered her sister. Her first kiss. The name of her child. "Thank you," she whispered, before fading into sleep, peaceful, at last. Back in the hollow core, Emily and Gabriel collapsed beside the now silent well. Their wounds glowed not with pain, but with warmth. Their names had not been erased. But something had changed. From the chamber walls, a voice stirred, soft, ageless. No longer flame. No longer shadow. You are now the archive. You are the final page. Emily wept. Gabriel took her hand. What does that mean? He asked. She smiled through her tears. It means we live. And remember. And when we die, we'll pass it on. Years passed. The hollow never stirred again. Blackthorn became a sanctuary for lost names. The manor grew quiet but never cold. Emily and Gabriel taught others, those who had lost parts of themselves. They rebuilt not from magic, but from storytelling. Children came to sit beside the hearthstone and listen to the tale of a woman who faced fire, of a man who gave up his name to protect hers, of gods who forgot they were once human, and of a flame that did not destroy but remembered. Candle title, Toi Truyen. The Memorykeeper's Flame. Scroll series description, Amo Ta Truyen. In a world where forgotten memories fuel ancient gods, one woman dares to remember. Emily Hawthorne is the last heir of the Crow bloodline, guardians of the Vigil's flame, a mystical fire sealing away the Hollow Watcher, a creature that feeds on memory itself. When her beloved Gabriel sacrifices his past to preserve the world, Emily embarks on a harrowing journey to restore what was lost. But the flame remembers more than just sorrow. As whispers of the Ember Queen rise from the ashes of myth, Emily must confront forgotten gods, twisted echoes of her own soul, and the terrifying truth behind the pact her ancestors forged. Bound by love, memory, and sacrifice, Emily and Gabriel must ignite a new legacy, one not written in blood, but remembered in flame. The Memorykeeper's Flame is an epic fantasy saga of haunting beauty, timeless love, and the power of remembrance in a world that begs to forget.